Here's some music. At number 25, it's Vinyl Williams with Azure. The thrill about neo-psych from like a decade ago with bands like Tame Impala and Caribou has nearly faded at this point with, those trendier bands moving in the electronic direction to stay current. But if you're still into that pure psych pop sound, then the best out there is Vinyl Williams. Lionel Williams turned to Vinyl Williams as the grandson of the legend John Williams, and believe it or not, he's not the only grandson of John Williams in my top list this year. Williams has this very hypnagogic and heavily processed vocal delivery like contemporary Jocko Gardner, and balances that dreaminess out with snappy bass and crisp drums like Unknown Mortal Orchestra. The crown jewel here is probably the third track, Zoom. At number 24 is a self-titled debut album from Mamalarky. This is propulsive, female-fronted psych pop again. I'd say it's as idiosyncratic, if not a little less original, than the band Deerhoof. This reminds me a lot of a very underrated indie album that I covered a couple years ago by Steady Holiday, or something recent by like White Denim. These hazy and soulful moments like the closing track Don't Laugh at Me are met with frenetic prog and punk ferocity, like on the song Big Trouble, which has kind of a gorilla toss thing going on, or the buzzing and kind of harsh opener Fury, which squeals along like an old train. The guitar work is excellent, the songs are very catchy, very immediate, and it's just a great album. The French electronic artist Nicolas Godin, who is a member of the fantastic duo Air, grabs the 23 spot. This is his second solo album called Concrete and Glass. The song Clara from the 2015 album was one of my favorites of that year, and he kind of has moved away from that acoustic kind of chamber pop approach. This is electropop, and he's French. It's very typically sophisticated, and it has great features, including Kaja Benet and Kieran J. Callanan and Alexis Taylor from Hot Chip. You can just really hear the experience here. He's not going for anything like genre defining or adventurous or way out there. He just acts like he's been there before, like Robert Downey Jr. at the Oscars or Larry Fitzgerald in the End Zone. Swedish rock band Hollow Ship storms out the gate with their debut album at number 22, Its Future Remains. This is an interesting one because it's not really the songwriting that gets me with it. It's kind of repetitive and not really my cup of tea in that way. It's really the production on this thing, that thick bass sound, that just specific crack of the snare. It just has such a visceral effect on me. I just feel it deep, There are just some grooves, just some moments, not necessarily progressions, that just get to me, Chasing Shadows with its bossa nova meets kind of a California ease, kind of a West Coast just atmosphere to it. Or Agent, which is definitely the best riff here. It's a promising band and something pretty fresh to come out of a quickly stiffening psych rock scene. Number 21 is some expertly crafted Canadian kind of chamber pop singer-songwriter stuff. It's Jordan Klassen with Tell Me What to Do. His vocals are kind of the whispery persuasion like Sufjan, or kind of lesser known Andy Schauf or Steven Steinbrink. I love the regal use of strings that bring a warmer and richer tone to an otherwise kind of minimalistic and at times very icy mood. Klassen has a chilly delivery that lands tracks like Surprise Not Surprised kind of in that Carrie and Lowell camp. His second person poetry kind of saying more in what it makes you imagine rather than what it actually says. But every chilly and melancholic moment is matched with something with mirth and levity, like the dorky identification, or the just plain happy I want to move into your house, which talks about someone with so much charm, so much charisma that you just can't help but want to move in. Hidden in the midst of this very easy, very unassuming listening experience are moments of genius, like Ministry of Doubt, or None of My Answers, just some deeply affecting songwriting. Next up is an artist who's always opted for authenticity over commercial success, and somehow managed to find both. I'm just a sucker. I can't help it. It's Fleet Foxes with Shore, a healing audio balm to the worn and weary soul. Every album's just gold, and Shore just continues that string of quality. It's very accessible, probably as much so as their first album, but just now informed by this decade of maturation and experience. You got characteristically deep reflection and gratitude expressed on front half hits like Can I Believe You, Sunblind, Long Way Past, The Past, while Yara and the incredible Maestranza offer more musical intrigue with touches of jazz. Pecknold never lets off the melodic focus, using his ability to arrange, his ability to create these deep wells of harmony to enrich these otherwise pretty straightforward pop songs. The album covers kind of cerulean blue and wistful scene really encapsulates the experience. A foot that's firmly planted on the earth, but with an eye towards what's out there. Kvelertak with Splid, a new drummer and a new vocalist who mixes in some clean vocals, which is just a direct way to my heart. Every song is just a barn burner, but Brodebron. That's just everything I love about this album. These victorious gang vocals and these classic rock riffs like Ghost. But then of course you got this heavy blackened vocal on the verse, and just the versatility of it all makes it so more impactful. Every ingredient has more punch to it. It's not really a thinker's album, it's just a rowdy good time. At number 18 we got some folky kind of Americana country stuff with Sarah Jarosz's World on the Ground. Jarosz is part of the Grammy-winning trio I'm With Her with Aoife O'Donovan and Sarah Watkins from Nickel Creek. World on the Ground wastes no time with very accessible, direct melodies and kind of classic Americana sounds that really complement the small town commemorations on the album. The song Johnny is a definite highlight that's chock full of Cobainisms and these very pleasantly dissonant harmonies. It's just a joy. It's good. I mentioned Caribou earlier, and their new album comes in at number 17. It's the first album from Dan Snaith since 2014's Our Love. I can't believe it's been 6 years since that album. And while it maintains that minimalistic dance flavor that made Our Love so good, it's a much more eclectic listen that really branches across his influences. You got kind of this 90s UK garage sound with boom bap and hip hop and rock, and it just kind of peppers in a burst of melody every once in a while to make the more repetitive, dancey electronic stuff a little more palatable. Like Magpie, which is a much more polished version from probably my favorite Caribou album, Andorra. And just that characteristic Snaith style. We got every single sound poured over and just molded like a blown glass figurine, like the quivering pitch and mind-bending piano on Sonny's Time. Or Like I Loved You with the kind of flamenco meets math rock solo section. He definitely has a knack for picking just perfect little vocal samples, and Suddenly is just so characteristically Dan Snaith. It's very heady but very minimal. It's got driving beats but with an understanding and melody that just makes the song stick. Back in I think 2016, I made this discovery that it's just one of those that keeps you coming back, to the back of the record shelves and to the deep corners of Bandcamp. I'd say it's like a progressive jangle pop band. That's probably the best way to describe this next one. With a copious use of the recorder, the worst instrument ever devised by humankind to torture fifth grade parents across the nation. That was the album AV by Surface to Air Missive, which was my runner-up album back from that year. And in 2020, it's Shelly's Gone. A little less recorded this time, but just as many chord changes, just as many tasteful uses of dissonance, like Easy Way, which cascades along in their typically very peppy way. It makes a case for being a hermit and kind of withdrawing into your own weird little world. This came out on January 1st, so, it could only be a prophecy of quarantine. This album is really a grower. I just forgot about it for like months at a time, and then decided to dive back in the summer and really got into it, especially the first half of the album and that closing track. The way that bassy piano comes in at about the halfway point, and then just the feathery layers of vocals that are just... This song is just such a good change of pace. It acts to accentuate the strengths of the band, which is that pop rock sound, very upbeat, very energetic, very lively, very jangly. And you know, like I was saying before, you need some versatility to draw you away from that. So when you go back to it, it's just that much more powerful. And this band, you know, a lot of times their albums can become a little monotonous because it's the same thing over and over. But this song just, I'm hoping to get back on the train a little bit and bring the channel back. Thank you for subscribing and for watching as always. You know, maybe every couple months I'll throw some obscure, deep cut kind of albums at you and take it or leave it. Oh, why is the Halo song my thing?